Hi everyone. I would like to welcome you all from Istanbul, Turkey. Thank you so much for investing time on Monday and sharing your valuable presentation with us. I would like to introduce myself. I am Ekrem Solak. I am assistant professor in the Department of Corporate and Commercial Law at the Istanbul Medeniyet University. Today we will have amazing panel on IT law. Before presentation begins, allow me to introduce you rules. Each presenter will have 15 minutes plus 5 minutes extra because our fourth presenter cannot attend our panel. So each of you will have additional 5 minutes. We will start with Mr. Firdaus. Now I am leaving the floor to you.
Okay, wait. Can you explain to me? Okay, so I just move around the slide by myself, or do I need
Yeah,
your assistant for this?
you can just
Like
operate the PowerPoint. No,
by myself. Okay.
yeah, by yourself. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you. So should I start now or
yeah, you can start now.
now? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Dr. Ekrem Solak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessing to all of us. Today, as probably audiences and participants already know, that I'll be presenting in the topic of artificial intelligence in digital economy from Indonesia interest in a multidisciplinary approach. I will just skip the biography of myself. So before I start to talk about this artificial intelligence in Indonesia, then we should, I would not take for granted that everybody knows about my country, Indonesia. Indonesia is like in the map. It has many islands, yeah, 17, over 17,000 islands from the size that can fit only one human like me into the size of one country that can even have 100 million population, for example, like Java Island, where it resides 100 million people. And the total population of Indonesia, we are reaching 273 millions. In the next period, we'll be reaching 300 millions. And so far, we are still the fourth populous country in the world, also part of G20. And just last week, we recently hosted G20 meetings in Bali. Indonesia is the fact that I think should be paid attention by some or even me myself, because it's important how we develop AI. We are rich with the ethnicity, including the foreign ethnicity like Chinese, Indian, Arab. We have more than 1,000 ethnicity. We are also the founder of and member of ASEAN. It's kind of like European Union in our region, in Southeast Asia, ASEAN. And we're also the largest Muslim majority country. We have over 200 million Muslim in Indonesia. And we are also the third largest democracy, and have been democracy country since we established our independence since 1945. Yeah, and also the fact that we have 12 items of unique intangible cultural heritage. It means that we are a country with a strong culture. Next, this is the principle that whatever we do in Indonesia, we will refer to this ideology. We call it Pancasila. It's originally from Sanskrit, and it's not even from Indonesian language. It has five principles: belief in one God, just and civilized humanity, dignity, democracy, and social justice. In general, we have many challenges that we need to overcome as developing countries, like economic issues, social issues, cultural funding problems that we do not know sometimes which one we should prioritize more, yet the budget is limited. Yeah. And also lack of technology, I mean, is digital the infrastructure, especially in the very challenging area like Indonesia, where the country is archipelagus country. We have many we have so many islands, yeah. And also, of course, the problem with the lower regulation policy that sometimes is overlap each other, different sector, or even in different degree from national law, for example, with the local law. And also, it is a continuous issue that we need to combat from the deployment of technology. For example, like hoax or many kind of cyber crimes, for example. This is ongoing issue. Then with the deployment of AI, it might make it worse, or maybe we can reduce it. Why AI is matters for Indonesia? I think it's happened like for many reasons to other countries, is to increase productivity, whether for business or whether to improve the human resource skills, but also to push innovation, and also tools to make it works for other kind of technology in this industrial 4.0, like IoT, interface, robotics, sensor technology, and 3D printing. So what we needs to be done, yeah, I think law and regulation, yeah, should take place. Yeah, we set ethics and also skill and labor on how to use AI, and then adequate infrastructure. Yeah. How to make it works, we also need to make open data as much as available, because data has important role on how to AI is being developed. Yeah. Here I show it to you the Indonesian national strategy that has been established in 2020. It is for a long-term plan. Yeah, Indonesia national strategy. It lasts from 2020 until 2045. So it is a long-term plan for us to make our country develop into significant level of development. Hopefully, it can be considered as developed country, not developing anymore by the time when we reach there. We fulfill that plan. Yeah. So this is for focus that AI national strategy Indonesia, ethics policy, talent development, infrastructure data, research, industrial innovation. 5 priority sectors: health service, bureaucratic reform, education, food security, mobile and smart city. It's important for Indonesia for mobility and smart city, especially because there are concentrated population where we have 270 and 100 million is in Java Island, which means even though we have many islands, but it's concentrated in one island only. So this is why we want the mobility it's spread around. Yeah, for example. And we also look from when we look at AI on how it's being developed and when it's deployment, we also should look at the different multidisciplinary. Yeah, from economic perspective, for example, we should focus on how economic stage by utilizing AI will make the wealthy distribution works better than before. Digital economy, without that, has to some extent can create the same playing field for us, for Indonesia, for Southeast Asian people. For example, in digital economy, we have example where Grab or Gojek is one of the. It has the same business model like Uber, and we are like Gojek and Uber actually. Gojek and Grab actually can beat Uber in our region, not only Indonesia but also in Southeast Asia. So this is the example on how digital economy is a level playing field. And despite that, we see that there are many reduction of workers in many tech companies, whether it happens in Western countries, and they also happen in Indonesia. But actually, it happens for different reasons. It's not always about because of economic crisis. It can be because of the IPO. It can be because of it's just the deadline. As you know that when people that develop tech company, when they reach the break-even point of the economy, it's not always can be reached by 1 year after 2 years they're established. It might be after 10 years or 5 years. So maybe it just happened at the same time, like when economic crisis happened. That's why we need to make a reduction, because apparently that the company did not need the profit that they should get, for example. Also, when we look at AI, this is also another issue. Many AI startups in Indonesia that is being developed is concentrated in Jakarta, the current capital of Indonesia. So this is also why we need to spread around. The development should not be in certain island, in Java Island, in certain city, in Jakarta, but also should spread in other cities, in other country, in other province around Indonesia, for example. We also should look at AI from sociology perspective, where despite AI is very technical when we are talking about the architecture and so on and so forth, but actually the impact is on human. So we should look at how the influence of AI from sociology perspective, where I think we should focus on combating inequalities. Inequalities can be toward gender or toward wealth distribution, because when we look at other technology like the internet, maybe we should also ask whether the technology actually has make us, our human civilization, better or not. So an AI possibly can make it better or can make it worse. Yeah. So, and then we also should look at the psychology. This is probably people start thinking, what does it relate between psychology and AI? Actually, it is related because AI, it's inspired the development of AI, or even when people wanted to develop AI, it's inspired by development of how our brain as human brain works. So psychology and AI actually is very related to each other, where if we know better about AI, we will know better about human. And if we know better about psychology, we also will know better about how AI it works. Yeah? And also beside AI will also, of course, help psychology professional to do their job too in more efficient and more accurate. And because we are talking from a perspective as Indonesia, we should not forget the role of religion is still important. Yeah, despite the current system of Indonesia is not using Islamic law or Sharia law. Only one province in Indonesia from 33 provinces that adopt Islamic law or Sharia law in Aceh. Yeah. The rest is using secular, but in reality, actually, religion still have important impact and effect. Albeit the different province might have different influence, because, for example, in Java Island, Islam is the majority, but if you go to Bali, if it's Hindu, that is majority, so it has different impact and how it works, the religion in different province. So yeah, so Indonesia should not be trapped into developing AI on what has been done by other countries just because it's popular. Because what is popular is not always right, and what is right is not always popular. Yeah. Yeah, from the religion perspective, when we should not limit it. This is from Islam perspective when we practice in Indonesia, and I think maybe elsewhere too. That the human was born to worship God. So whatever we do is not only when we pray in the mosque, but also when we do everything, even when we are doing presentation now or meeting or something. We should also refer to the how Islamic way it works. So when we develop AI, we should not develop in the way that it's being forbidden by the religion. For example, I think the example of the tendency of how AI it's being developed, that the people want to create Terminator, want to create animaloid, yeah, humanoid, animaloid. That's probably something that cannot be done if you refer to Islamic way, because if you refer that some people believe that creating picture is already meaning we play like a god, then when create a robot that have a shape like a human and then animals, I think that's even heavier sinner than the picture only. As I think it's referred to Al Hadis Sahih Bukhari. Yeah. Also, we should not forget that just because we are focusing on digital economy, maybe this is a bit intermezzo. It's from I think remake film. make film of I think it's from the movies in about 1950 or something, but it's remake last year. Uh, the Nile. I think the movie is about crime, homicide in Nile River. So, but it is important. It is interesting. One of the quotation here: when you have money, no one is ever really your friend. So we should not be blind by our focus on economy, that we forget that money is only something, not everything. So when we develop AI, it's good to make the wealth of distribution spread, yeah, to as many as people as possible, but it should also achieve sustainable development goals as well. So we should not only for short-term achievement. Yeah. So the challenge of AI in Indonesia, yeah, is a lot, but I think it also happened in other countries as well. Whatever is their ideology, right? So let's move. How many minutes I have, Dr. Akrim Solak? 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
3 minutes.
Okay. So this is the strength and the weakness.
Plus 5 minutes. Total 8 minutes you have.
Okay, so I still have 90. Yeah, AI needs to be regulated. When we talk about internet before around 90s, there are cyber libertarian and cyber paternalism, where there is conflict between whether the internet should be regulated or not. But I'm glad that for AI, people have more agree that AI needs to be regulated. Maybe the problem is the details on how AI needs to be regulated. Yeah, because obviously self-regulatory is not enough. There are too many at stakes. Yeah, so we cannot just involve companies to do as please as they want, and we also cannot let the government do as they want to, because the impact will be too massive. Yeah, and it's potentially can be a snowball too. Yeah, if or Pandora box, if we are not careful on how to tackle the deployment and development of artificial intelligence. Yeah. Um, this is the strength. This is based on the Indonesian document AI National Strategy 2020 until 2045. I translated from Indonesian into English. Yeah. So the strength is we already have the legal umbrella. Yeah. And then the government already have the strong motivation, yeah, by developing some standard on how it's developed. Yeah. But the problem is there is no regulatory instrument. Yeah. There are no ethics yet. Yeah. There is no supervisory institution that focus solely only on artificial intelligence yet. Yeah. And obviously, law and regulation also have a lot of homework. Yeah. Yeah. We currently still trying to have a good data protection law. Well, we know that data protection is only the beginning for everything, yeah, including on how AI is developed. It's also data protection law will have a key role there. So it means we have a lot of homework. Yeah. Yeah, I think the challenge, like many people already know, algorithm, accountability, fairness, data issue, security, crimes, misuse, and balancing human rights. This is just the list is not exhaustive. Yeah, I think the more we develop, the more AI is being implemented in more sector in human civilization, then the more issue I think we will find. And then yeah, basically we just have more issue than more. But I think it is part of a human spirit on how we survive is by conducting innovation, including innovation on how to solve the new issue that happened to us. Yeah. Yeah, I will move to now. So this is from Indonesia perspective. What kind of AI and law regulation in Indonesia that is needed? Yeah, I think we should not forget that the role of law is to aim for justice, not for legal certainty and formality. So many laws, the regulation that sometimes we create that actually it's just to reach merely legal certainty and formality. So we should stop doing that. Yeah, in every sector, including on how is when we develop and deploy an FI. Otherwise, it will only benefit it to the people who have the power, who have the money, and so on and so forth. So we should stop behave survival of the fittest. Law and regulation should also protect the citizen right, yeah, but not become an obstacle of innovation. Again, this is balancing, yeah, which is not easy, but it should not deter people to create law and regulation, because when it's lawless, then I think the wilderness of the problem is also you just beyond imaging of you. And then protecting again human rights, yeah, like privacy right and personal data protection right. I think is the easy and the classic one for us to find, but I think it's just more. We don't know that what kind of crimes has been developed by using internet only without AI. But with AI, it's potentially will become more risk, and not to mention that development of autonomous weapon is already started. Yeah, so we don't know the problem here, the limit. Yeah, and also that foreign direct investment, there should also be promoted on how to deploy or development and AI, because obviously we need funding more than just from the government funding. Yeah, and I think this is the responsibility for multi-stakeholder as well. And also not forget about the culture, because a great nation is not only because how great is the economy or how big is the population or how big is the territory, but also how big is the pride of the citizen or the people to hold their national identity. But this doesn't mean that we don't want to learn from foreign concept or foreign culture. As long as it's constructive, then can make us better as a human, as a nation, then why not? But this is also homework for us. Yeah. And also, I think the law and regulations should also promote inclusivity and combat inequality. This is socially and also economic. Yeah. Indonesia, even though it's part of G20 and the only country in the Southeast Asia that is part of G20, but we have a lot of homeworks for wealthy distribution, because in some cities, in some province, people are already quite uh, enjoy their life, yeah, with their maybe middle up income and so on. But in other countries, people sometimes cannot even access the internet. Maybe they can access the internet, sometimes they cannot, or even they cannot access the internet at all. So this is the inequality that we're talking about, yeah. And also in religion practice, this is also issue, because internet not only creating people better experience on how to find a way of how to run religion, for example, but also sometimes to make the twisted practice of religion, like people become terrorists or people even twisted the concept of religion itself. In Indonesia, this is, I think, the continuous problem. Like some people maybe do it defamation, but some people really just create a chaos on how to, I don't know, challenge the concept of religion itself. So this is, needs
Sorry,
to be
you have
done.
2 minutes.
Okay. So what needs to be done? Amendment of privacy rights, personal data protection rights, and digital rights should be included in Indonesia Constitution, or well known UUD 45. Yeah. Also, personal data protection is a must. Yeah. Comprehensive cybersecurity, and also regulatory impact assessment is something that should be conducted more and more whenever we create law and regulation, including in AI sector, in AI for every sector. Yeah, and we should not forget to involve more and more people from different background, multi-stakeholders, not only multidisciplinary but also multi-stakeholders. That, for example, data scientists and developer, of course, tech community, of course, IT companies, of course, users like human rights and privacy rights, yeah, for example, civil society, academics, government, and this is, for example, that people needs to also be involved is religious and cultural community organization, because we know that AI, where it's been developed, firstly, and Indonesia, we just started, so we might get influenced by from the culture that maybe not really works in us. Yeah, if we just copy paste, so this is where we should include more and more stakeholders. Yeah, yeah, I think this is it from me.
Thank you so much. We will take questions in the end of panel. So I am moving to our next speaker, Dr. Neriman. If you are ready, you can start your presentation.
Should I start it or yeah? Let's start it.
Yeah, you can start. You have 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Firdevsi, for your presentation, and good afternoon, you all. I'm Neriman Kılıç, and today I will talk about the protection of digital assets in the realm of international investment law and arbitration. As you may already know, IIL is known as a field of law that provides protection for investors and grants them with certain tools to bring claims against the host state when there is a breach of certain provisions. And when it comes to providing protection to their digital assets, the issue becomes more complicated, since there is no general international mechanism in this sense. Therefore, it has been argued by some that IIL and the responsibility of host states should come into play to provide such protection for investors. However, if we accept this argument, then there will be many questions to be answered. And today I aim to discuss these questions to see if there will be viable claims in the future, because at the moment there is no case law in this sense. So if we start with, in order to, first let's move on with the IIL. As you may already know, IIL is regulated by almost 3,000 investment treaties, and there is no one single multinational document in this sense, or any single body or mechanism to settle the disputes, because arbitration is generally the most common dispute resolution system, and all of these shows that there is certain difficulties surrounding this system. And if an investor would like to bring a claim against a host state, that investor should rely on a BIT, that BIT, and we should interpret that BIT. And the first question here is that, can digital assets be accepted as covered investments within the scope of these investment treaties? To answer this question, we should look into that particular treaty that investor is relying on. But in order to take an example, let's see Turkish model BIT. Here, first I should mention that in order to provide certain protection to an investor, there should first be an investment, of course. And how we are going to decide or interpret that there is an investor and these digital assets can be seen as covered investments, we need to interpret that certain BIT. If we look into the Turkish model BIT, we can see a broad and asset-based definition of investment, and this kind of definition can be found in majority of BITs, and usually starts with every kind of asset. And when we say every kind of asset, we mean, or we refer to every kind of asset that has an economic value, which digital assets can also be an example of. So in this sense, in theory, yes, digital assets can be seen as covered investment. But the problem here is that, as we said, there are almost 3,000 investment treaties, but not all investment treaties or BITs has this kind of expansive language in terms of the investment definition. Sometimes BITs impose certain restrictions on the definition of investment, or sometimes they exclude certain assets, or sometimes they just provide certain lists certain list of our assets that can be seen as covered investments. Plus, in the last few decades, states are now more tend to include less expansive language in their new BITs because of they would like to reduce the claims that they face. And the definition of the investment under BITs are not the only factors that affect the definition of investment and our answer to our first question. There are certain factors that also affects the tribunal's interpretation, but there is certain uncertainty regarding these economic factors. Because our time is very limited, I'm not gonna mention all of these economic factors, but I will just say that there is uncertainty and unpredictability regarding the interpretation of the investment. Another issue, if we move on to our next question, if we say that yes, digital assets can be seen as covered investment, the next question is that is there a territorial link between that investment and the host state? Because some BITs require certain territorial nexus and states that that investment should be made within the territory of the host state. Then to answer this question, we should look into or define what type of digital asset that we are talking about, since there are a wide range of digital assets. I'm not going to get into the details of all, but if we take the digital asset as a part of an investment, then we can say that if the general investment is is located in the territory of the host state, then we can say that we have established a territorial nexus. But if we take the digital asset as a standalone investment, then it is more difficult to locate the location of that digital asset, especially if that asset is purely intangible. Then some argue that we should have other criteria to establish that territorial nexus. Some argue that we should have a specific economic anchorage. For instance, we should link that digital asset to an operation or a company, etc., that is located or operates in the host state. But some others argue that we don't need a specific economic anchorage, but we only need to look into where and for the benefit of whom that asset is used. So there is also another difficulty here regarding the establishment of that territorial nexus. But for the sake of moving on, if we say that we agree on yes, digital assets can be seen as covered agreements, and we have established the territorial nexus, then the next question is basis that investors can bring a claim against the host state. the first provision that investors can rely on can be expropriation, the first standard. Within the scope of IAL, expropriation can occur directly or indirectly. The direct expropriation is easier to define as it is the transfer of title, but when in terms of indirect expropriation, then it is harder to define, because it doesn't concern with it is not the transfer of title, but indirect expropriation concerns the instances where state measures have the impact of substantially depriving the value of that investment. First, if we discuss the direct expropriation of digital assets, of course, the host states will be held responsible for such action if, of course, other conditions occurs. But when it's the case of indirect expropriation, then it is more complicated to define and decide whether that measure done by the host state caused such deprivation. And of course, in terms of cybersecurity, the regulations or the measures that governments take, such as content restrictions or some duty to content disclosure or data disclosure, etc., whatever that measure is, of course, it might have it will have some deprivation of value of that digital asset. But in any case, there are tons of different types of measures and tons of different types of digital assets, and we need to discuss each measure regarding to each digital asset if that measure constitute indirect expropriation within the scope of that particular BIT, which is outside the scope of this presentation, so I'm not gonna get into all the details. But there is another issue regarding expropriation, which is the cyber attacks or state-sponsored cyber attacks and economic espionage done by the host state. When this kind of attacks occur, can the investor rely on the expropriation standards within the BITs, under the BITs? But the first, even if we accept this argument, the first difficulty here would be for the investor to show that the host state is involved in such attack, because usually it is very hard to exactly determine where the attack is originated and done by who. And plus, states rarely do these kind of attacks or economic espionage activities by their organs, but most of the time they use third parties, which makes it more difficult to link that attack or activity to the host state. Therefore, we can still state that expropriation might be a possible claim in the sense, but there are certain difficulties for it to be successful, for that claim to be successful. If we move on to the next provision or standard under BITs, which is full protection and security, can investors rely on this standard to bring a claim against the host state? Provisions that provide protection and security to investors are drafted with slight differences, like constant protection security, full protection and security or just protection and security. But these slight differences don't make really huge differences in the interpretation. But according to this standard, the host state should abstain itself and all of its entities and organs from any type of infringement of physical security of the investment. And it also should provide protection and security to that investor against the actions of third parties as well. So when it is the state who harms the investment or the investor in this sense, again, of course, the investor can rely on this standard, but the difficulty is to link such actions to the host state that we mentioned in direct expropriation are valid here as well, so there is no need to repeat them here. When it comes to the third parties, actions of third parties, we said that according to this standard, the host state should also provide that security and protection to the investor. But the first question here is that when we say full protection and security, do we only mean the physical protection and security of that investment? Because historically, this standard was mostly meant for armed groups and rioters, etc. So it was mostly meant for physical protection. So if we state that we should still take this traditional approach, traditional interpretation, and we should just look into the physical protection and security. But then how are we going to ensure the physical safety of a digital asset, especially when it is purely intangible? And there are also, of course, arguments stating that when we say full protection and security, we do not just mean physical safety or security of an investment. We also mean something broader like commercial security or commercial protection or legal protection that we need to provide for investors. And if we take this broader
sorry to interrupt. You have 3 more minutes left.
Oh, okay, sorry. I will just try to wrap up. Okay, if we take the second approach, then we should see that what kind of protection that we need to provide for the investors. And in general, some tribunals states that states should ensure a general and overall safe environment for the investors, which includes the cybersecurity, of course. But cybersecurity, for instance, in that country, there should be certain regulations regarding cybersecurity. But if that country doesn't have cybersecurity laws, which means that that country doesn't have the necessary tools to prosecute the criminals if there is a cyber attack. And these also, if these states don't have cybersecurity laws, it also means that it's not able to prosecute these criminals or even extradite them to be prosecuted. So another issue here, that even if we accept that yes, states should ensure that there is an overall safe environment for the investors, so investors can see all the risks and conduct their business properly, what will be the state standard of liability in terms of FPS standard? Will it be enough if that country has a model tax law in cybersecurity in force, or how much resources that country should use when there is an attack to find proof or prosecute the investors, criminals, not investors, etc. So to answer these questions, the tribunal in Pantechnici versus Albania states that the answer to these questions relative to the resources that host state has. So because there is a gap between developed countries and developing countries, so we cannot, investors cannot expect the same cybersecurity standards from developed countries and developing countries. So the standards should be always different according to the resources of that country. So again,
sorry, we have just 1 minute.
Okay. I was going to mention another provision, fair and equitable treatment, but I'm not going to mention that because I don't have time. But to conclude, in theory, yes, IAL and the BITs can be a legal basis to provide protection to the digital assets of investors, but there are many difficulties, and the language of the BIT is also quite problematic. And we need to first resolve these issues, and since there is also no case law at the moment, we do not also know how will approach this issue and interpret these provisions regarding the digital assets topic. So in future, I think we might see certain cases and then have more idea in this sense. Thank you for listening, and sorry if I exceed my time. I think I need to finish here.
Thank you so much. I think this is perfect timing. You used all 20 minutes, but nothing more than that. Thank you so much. Thank you for great presentation again. Our final speaker is Simay Doğan. Now I am leaving floor to her. She can present her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello everyone, I am Simay Doğan. Thank everyone for this conference. Today I am going to talk about creating a database for transfer pricing to electronic book statements and invoices. Before that, I have to mention that transfer pricing has many problems in practice. It's very hard topic to understand. For this reason, I would like to give some information about transfer pricing and arm's length price. So let's start. Transfer pricing is the price of the purchase of sale of goods or services between corporations and related parties. This price could be contrary to arm's length principle. In such a case, the profit will be distributed in a disguised manner. However, the fact that corporations use transfer pricing doesn't mean that they have a disguised profit distribution. Transfer pricing is essentially lawful transaction, but abusing transfer pricing, corporation can evade taxes. Disguised profit distribution to transfer pricing is transfer income to related parties without being taxed. It is made by differentiating the price of transaction between related parties from arm's length price. So you can see the part of the legislation of Article 13 of the corporate tax law. So arm's length is the basis of transfer pricing. Arm's length principle is built on arm's length price. Arm's length price is the objective price formed by the bargaining of parties according to the free market condition in comparable situations. It is very difficult to determine it. Also, there are many problematic issues in Turkey. Today, I am going to explain two of them and try to find a solution for them. One of them is the difficulty of determining comparable transaction. Incomparability analysis for transfer pricing, arm's length transactions should have same or similar characteristics with the transfer pricing transaction. Arm's length price can be considered as internal precedent and external precedent. Best precedent for a company to benefit is, without any doubt, internal precedent. However, if there is no applicable internal precedent, it should be used external precedents. But there are no adequate sources of information on comparable transaction in Turkey, and the existing ones are difficult to access because there is no obligation other than the data disclosure obligation of APO companies. External precedent may be based on the price of the same transaction carried out by the companies with the same field activity and similar structures. So it requires knowledge of some special information about the companies and their stakeholders. So as you can imagine, companies are not willing to give such information. For this reason, companies have difficulty to find external precedents according to our current regulations. Even if a company obtains another company's data, their use may constitute a crime in some cases, as you can see our Turkish criminal codes. And the other problematic issues that I would like to discuss, use of secret precedents. Tax administrations can determine unlawful transfer pricing by using precedents obtained from the third parties, especially by using audit tools or through the declaration made by the corporations. Tax administrations do not inform companies about these precedents that they use. This precedents is not open to access, and I think it's against the right to fair trial because the principle of equality arms will be violated against the taxpayers. Also, taxpayers do not have detailed information about what they're accused of, and also they don't have any opportunity to make an assessment on whether to take a judicial action or to benefit from alternative remedies. So this is my solution proposals. Before that, I would like to give some information about the database for transfer pricing. There is no database established in Turkey. For these reasons, especially multinational companies use international databases. There are many sector-specific databases that serve with a subscription system. They are very useful for companies in determining accurate and reliable external precedents. They also they do not contain any information about unit price or transaction price. They only contain economic rights, sales, and profitability analysis. The most common database is Amadeus, but I have to mention that their usage fees are very high and is not very affordable for small or medium-sized companies. So, it is possible and necessary for Turkish tax administrations to establish a database to electronic books, statements, and invoices. With this database, it will be possible for companies to make unit price or transaction price comparisons over the data obtained for electronic invoices. And also, it will be possible to make an economic right size or profitability comparisons over the data obtained from electronic books and statements. So it could be more advanced version of Amadeus database because it will provide for companies to make unit price or transaction price comparisons. Also, with a database as suggested, the companies can find external precedents easily, and there will be no need for tax administrations to use secret precedents. And also, with this database, it will be provided to ease of proof that the companies do not make disguised profit distribution. If a transfer pricing transaction is in confidence with the database, they will be considered lawful as presumption. Evaluation of the issue in terms of tax privacy. The use or share of the information and documents which are confidential for taxpayers without any legal purposes may cause material or moral damages to taxpayers. This will also decrease the trust for tax administration. For this reason, according to legislation, it is prohibited that the tax administration and other persons listed in the article from disclosing the personal data, trade secret and traditional secrets of the taxpayer and their related parties. Also, it is prohibited to use this information for the benefit of themselves or the third parties. The obtained random information of the taxpayer and the related parties of the taxpayer from electronic books, statements, and invoices will be evaluated within the frame of tax privacy. But the obtained information from these documents showing tax, financial and trade secrets, and personal situations will be protected within the scope of tax privacy. So, the second evaluation should be in the terms of the personal data protection. As you know, personal data and information related to an identify a natural person. Since everybody knows personal data protection, I think it will be okay to pass the discussion of it. So I would like to mention that the data subject to tax privacy and personal data protection are similar to each other. However, tax privacy protects the data of both individuals and entities, but the protection of personal data protects only the data of individuals. All data contained electronic books, statements, and invoices regarding taxpayer and their related parties' personalities can be considered as personal data. So it should be evaluated in the terms of explicit context. As you know, explicit context is defined in our legislation, and personal data shall not be processed without obtaining any explicit consent. These data can only process without any explicit consent if it's permitted by a law. In our Article 5 of Turkish tax procedural law lists which circumstances of sharing data are deemed to lawful. Currently, there is no exception following the tax administration to share taxpayers and their related parties' data in a database. If a person other than this article uses the data, the personal protection data will have to be applied. So, taxpayers will only be able to process this kind of data to a database with the explicit informed consent of them, which is impossible, as you can imagine. So, this will be my solution for tax transfer pricing problems. In our opinion, any inconveniences in terms of protection of personal data and tax privacy can be avoided if these data are made unknown to whom they belong to by passing through a method similar to anonymization. Anonymization is defined simply making personal data unrecognizable. The purpose of anonymization is to break the link between the data and the person, as you know. the tax administration should choose the anonymization method to be applied. In our opinion, is it possible to benefit from anonymization methods that do not provide value irregularity and statistical methods that strengthen anonymization? But it is not possible to benefit from anonymization method that provide value irregularity, because we need the value of data to drive a benefit from it. How can I explain in English? But I don't know. But we need to see the real actual price of the transactions, so we can make a comparison or transfers. So finally, if it's possible to make data unpredictable, it could be not included in a database by applying the anonymization method of removing records or recognition and hiding. That's all I can say right now. I think I didn't get my time.
You have 2 minutes more.
Yeah, it's okay. I finished.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you again for investing time in IT Law conference. If I have to check if we have questions for you, just give me a second. I think there is no question. Thank you again for great presentations. Thank you for attending the conference. I hope we will see you next year in Istanbul. Thank you again. Now I am closing the panel.
Dr. Eka.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.